Good morning, and good morning to those in attendance and also those watching the live streaming. And pleased to report the live streaming is operational this time. We were outgunned by a late change to a firewall last ordinary council meeting, which I think caught everyone by surprise, but has now been rectified. Welcome to this special meeting of council, and the primary item is for council or myself as commissioner to consider the presentation of the VC Mitchell Park project, proposing to move from Whole Point 2 to Whole Point 3. Meetings being held at the council chambers in Donnybrook, Monday 12th of June, and we commence the meeting at 10 a.m. Could I begin by acknowledging that we are acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, the Wadandi people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm declaring the meeting open and, as I say, welcoming the public gallery, and to advise that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council Policy EM/CP2, and commissioned to further state the following. This meeting is being live streamed and digitally recorded in accordance with Council Policy. Members of the public are reminded that no visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without permission of the chairperson, and whilst every endeavour has been made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises from the gallery may be picked up on the recording. So for the three of you in attendance, please restrain yourself from loud yahooing or otherwise. Members present: myself as Commissioner, Ben Rose, Chief Executive Officer to my left, Kim Dolcidelli, Director Corporate and Community to my right, Ross Marshall, and congratulations Ross, I think this is your first meeting in the position of Director Operations, Lauren Clifford to the left of Ben as Acting Manager Executive Services, and welcoming Samantha Farquhar, Administration Officer Executive Services, who's taken over from Archie, so welcome to you, Samantha. We have no apologies or approved leave of absence. We have no applications for a leave of absence. In terms of announcements from the presiding member, as I indicated last night, and I thank those people who attended last night for the information session we provided, it is my intention to move from Whole Point 2 to Whole Point 3, and I'll ask Mr. Marshall to provide a bit more information when we get to the item. The declarations of interest, Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995 requires me to take care to ensure that financial or impartiality interests are declared, and that I refrain from voting on any matter which is considered to come within the ambit of the Act. I have no I declare I've got no interests that would preclude me from taking part or voting on this matter. We move now to public question time in accordance with clause 7(3) of the Local Government Administration Regulations. Just remind people that public questions must relate to the stated purpose of the special meeting of council. Shane, I think you have, so Shane Sercombe. Shane, please come up to here and just get the mic to you and turn that on. Great.
Cheers, thanks Commissioner. First up, given we're sort of getting towards the pointy end of the project and finances, has the football club entered into a memorandum of understanding regarding the 250k contribution and the management of the completed project?
I'll ask Mr. Dolcidelli or Mr. Marshall to respond. My understanding is no, not at this stage. Yeah. I might just get some clarification because we have had some advice from the West Australian Football Commission. Ben, are you able to provide an update on that?
Thank you, Commissioner. The WA Football Commission have undertaken to provide some more funding towards the project on the proviso that it underwrites some of the contribution proposed by the Donnybrook Football Club. The project manager, now Director of Operations, is working through the intricacies of that with the Donnybrook Football Club and the Football Commission. The Director of Operations, who was the project manager at the time, and I have had conversations with the Donnybrook Football Club with regards to the financial contribution of up to $250,000. And whilst we haven't signed anything yet, the intention is very much that the football club make a sizable contribution towards the project. But it's not, there's nothing signed as yet.
And I'll just, in terms of that, what in practical terms has happened is that the Football Commission was going to give, I think, 120,000 from memory. They have now indicated their contribution will be higher. I can't remember what the figure was. 200, but that's on the basis that the...
It's 65 of that offsets. Sorry.
Sorry, Ross.
Yeah, so 65 of that will offset the football club's contribution. So, and it also means obviously that the contribution going directly to the Shire, if you like, has increased from 120 to 135.
So the football club contribution would notionally come down, we expect, to around about that, just under the 200,000 mark, 185 or thereabouts. And the Football Commission, in effect, will pay that additional amount to the Shire. That's...
Okay, thanks. And just for clarification, is that funding above and beyond the 120 that was spent on the lights that have been completed?
I will, Ross, are you better placed to answer that one for me?
It's just to clarify, it is above and beyond, so it's separate.
Yep, great, thanks.
So just for clarity, the funding for the lighting has got nothing to do with this next contribution coming in.
Yeah, that was what I was seeking clarity on, thanks. So obviously, you were not able to pass through whole point 3 without securing that funding. There would be a budget hole of up to that amount if that money is not secured prior to whole point 3.
There is nothing that would preclude me moving to whole point 3, but absolutely the expectation is that the football club contribution still forms part of that overall fund. If, for whatever reason, the football club contribution wasn't forthcoming, then it would certainly impact in terms of moving to the construction phase and also the overall costs, but there's nothing to preclude that. That doesn't have to be signed up before we move from 2 to 3. So to pass through whole point 3, entering into the final contract, if that money is not secured, there's essentially a budget hole. Could potentially
yes,
be, and I have had absolutely no reason to expect that the football club contribution wouldn't be committed.
Yep, thank you. And just on that point, we had quite an extensive EOI regarding the former netball and hockey club rooms, which sought comprehensive financial and governance advice for any potential interested parties. Has the Shire viewed and confirmed any of the football club's current financials and capacity for ongoing operations?
I'm not aware of needing to do that, and I'm not aware of whether it's been done or not. So unless either the CEO or else someone else can actually provide that detail, it'd be something I'd take on notice. But I wouldn't expect ordinarily we would be going into that level of detail for that one. But CEO, can you add anything?
Thanks, Commissioner. We did actually get a copy of the Donnybrook Football Club's financials, and it's my understanding it's the same financials that they have to submit annually to the organisation, to Department of Commerce, I think it is, Department of Commerce. So that's all been submitted and done. Like, as far as they've also provided, in accordance with a draft property management framework, they've also provided a health check as well. So we have sort of the financials and we have the health check.
Yeah, so you're pretty confident they've got the capacity to provide a significant amount and to have the capacity to run and maintain the venue once it's completed?
The financials are sort of outside of my area of expertise, so probably best I don't answer that.
Yeah.
But certainly the commitment is well and truly understood.
Yeah. Just going back to my original question, it would just seem rather odd that the EOI for a fairly small proposal with the netball and hockey club rooms would require extensive, 20 pages of organisational information, and we don't do the same for this, the show's biggest ever
I think
project.
it's probably comparing two different scenarios, but and for the sake of the minutes, we're just that is, in a sense, does the Shire apply the same sort of level of scrutiny to the same sorts of lease or contribution arrangements across the board? I would suggest it varies from project to project. I think what Mr. Marshall has indicated is that we have cited the required financial returns that the football club submits. It's now the Department of Mining, Industry, Resources and Safety, and that would be under the Associations Incorporated Act, as I would understand it. They have to submit that plus any other detail they submit to. My sense is that in the course of the overall project, yes, there is the absolute expectation that commitment will be forthcoming and will be able to be met. And that's something that we will work through in the next phases of the project. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have the worst oval lighting in the South West Football League? And has a lighting engineer determined the current lights to be safe for playing night games and having an acceptable impact on neighbours and traffic?
That is, I think, I reminded people that the questions have to relate to the purpose of the meeting. I think you're getting a bit outside the scope of the meeting for the special council meeting. It's a question I'm quite happy for you to submit separately and ask the question, but it would ordinarily be a matter for the football commission, for the football club, sorry, not for the council, unless it was actually a safety impact issue. But I can't deal with that or allow that for this particular meeting.
Okay. Do we have a business case outlining likely expenses versus potential revenue from events? And keeping in mind, as far as I understand, we have a 5-year moratorium on club fees.
We do have a moratorium on fees that was agreed by the previous council. We do have the long-term financial plan, and we have had an independent scrutiny by RHC Consulting on the current proposal. I'm comfortable that is adequate, but if Mr. Dolcedelli wishes to add anything further, I will ask him if he does. Okay, so nothing on.
Yes. So
Shane, how many more questions have you got?
3 more questions.
Okay, thank you.
So just seeking clarity on that one, do we have anything outlining potential revenue from the venue versus the expenses?
I think in the long-term financial plan and some of the previous work that's been done by Anna Dixon and others, there have been some estimates made. I would certainly imagine that with most of these things it will be a matter of how to what purpose the venue is put. I would not imagine this sort of facility actually making money. It would ordinarily need to be subsidised in some form, but that is very much any community facility, or most community facilities would be very much in that, along those lines. But Kim, anything else that I'm missing there?
No, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thanks. What is the approximate, and I realise it's a fluid situation, but what is the approximate cost to provide works not covered in the current contract, including sealed vehicle entry and car parks, connecting footpaths, landscaping, fencing, and lighting, sort of the almost essential items? They might not be required to cut the ribbon on the day, but, you know, works that really need to be done within the next year or two preceding the finishing of the venue. Just sort of community expectation is set that there will have to be significant works carried out at the site above the $9 million work. So am I able to get any sort of ballpark or indication of those sorts of works?
Sorry, there won't be that level of detail at the moment. As we explained last night, there will be a whole lot of, work. I mean, this is a part of providing, further progress towards the master plan. There's work being done at the moment to not only review some of those master planning requirements, but to actually identify and prioritise some of those other works over time. It was never going to be in scope for these. The question of by what time frame they need to be provided is probably a moot point anyway. One of the things I did explain last night was that we are actually looking to go to government with a request for some funding from some budget allocation that has been provided in light of some of the escalation of construction costs. That's not at any cost to any ratepayers of this show. It's to see if government has actually has provided some uplift in contributions to various projects such as the East Fremantle Football Club redevelopment, the Haynes Oval redevelopment, some of the other projects. We would anticipate that we will put in a bid for that. The numbers are just being worked up at the moment, but we will seek other funding at that stage. But it's those sorts of works, which would include, some of the sealing of car parks, would be future works. And I think they were always identified. There was sort of a stage one, stage two. But Ross, did you want to add anything further to that?
Just to confirm basically what you've said, Commissioner, and again, I'll sort of refer, this is quite a handy document shown on looking at the VC Mitchell Park Community Information Package, excuse me, where we did highlight that the elements you've just talked about are the ancillary elements, and we have been working with RCH Consulting in preparing a top-up funding application, which is in draft, ready to go. And I think I mentioned to you last night, I was just waiting to put a number in it, which I've done, so we'll go through the correct channels with that.
You've put a number in, as in funding amount.
Yeah.
Are you able to, I guess essentially
No, I won't go into, because it's something that I haven't even had the opportunity to read yet, so I won't put that on the record. But I would just remind everyone, including those watching online, that community information package is online, so it's worth, and it has as much information as we can. We also made the invitation last night for people to provide, sort of contribute to frequently asked questions so that we can respond to those as well. But suffice to say, I think there are, and I mentioned this last night as well, that there will be opportunities, I think, for some, what I call community building projects as well, but equally we would expect to endeavour to seek funding from sources such as Lottery West, etc., for things like All Abilities, toilets, etc., or changing places, I think they call the actual program, so that we can actually, continue to actually build out the precinct, because it was always planned as, as a long-term project.
Yeah, and just finally, so there should be an expectation on the community that there's going to be a fairly significant amount of works required, primarily related to the football club area and Pavilion 1, required above and beyond the $9.5 million that will be spent as part of this initial project?
I wouldn't say particularly related to the football club area in Pavilion 1. I think the end result of the new build will be a substantial new build, and which we refer to as Pavilion 1 in the Community Information Pack. The Pavilion 2, which is the existing tennis clubs, will actually have new roofing, new drywalling, the new change facilities, some entrance statements, connection to the courts, etc. So a substantial amount of work there. There's already been in place the half-court sort of hockey area. Yeah. The whole area will continue to be a work in progress, but if you're looking at things like the overall fencing around the precinct, some of the children's play facilities, some of the internal refurbishments at the existing tennis club, etc., yes, they will continue to be works that will need to be done. But that was always going to be the case, in my understanding. I think maybe initially there had been a hope or an expectation that more work could be done on Pavilion 2 internally, but that was fairly apparent fairly early on, well, certainly before my time, that wasn't going to be able to be met within that funding envelope. We're also dealing with the fact that costs, obviously, across the board have escalated. So one of the things that has exercised Mr Marshall's mind and the project consultation group's mind, which are the representatives of the various clubs, has been what opportunities there are for some of that value engineering, value management to make sure we stay within the parameters. The absolute, sort of commitment at this stage is that that we have a finite project envelope, which includes the $6 million grant from the state government and the $2.9 million loan from Treasury, and some small amounts of funds that have been contributed from the Shire and elsewhere. We know the financial envelope we're working to, and that's absolutely the focus at the moment.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Shane. Okay, any other questions? Sorry, just turning the mic off, so the clip clop was Lauren's heels, so for the public record. Okay, reports of officers. Now this is a substantive item. Director of Operations, the 6.1.1 on the agenda. I'm being asked to approve the completion of contractual hold point 2 for the VC Mitchell Park project and approve the commencement of contractual hold point 3 for the VC Mitchell Park project. Effectively, Mr Marshall, Mr Rose and I met with Perkins Builders and representatives of the architects and others about a week and a half ago. There has been substantial work that's been done over the last few months in particular, but certainly since we moved from hold point 1 into hold point 2 on refining the design. I will ask Mr Marshall to give a quick summary, because for those that weren't able to be at the session last night, but we won't go through the entire presentation again, but just a little overview of what's been happening. But before I do it, could I actually thank and acknowledge the work of the representatives of that project consultative group, who have actually added really valuable input into the process, and also commend Mr Marshall, Ronnie Hurst when he's been involved, but the team involved, because I think the comment was made last night that there's been an amazing amount of good work being done, and I think we're looking at a much, I suppose, more robust product, but something that is looking very good given the constraints we're working to. So, Mr Marshall, to you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'm not very good at succinct, to be honest. Obviously, we're moving from hold point 2 to hold point 3, so we're going from schematic design we had schematic design, which was hold point 1. We're now at what's called design development, and then we'll move to construction documentation. and construction documentation is about 90%. We've certainly worked pretty hard to refine the design and also very conscious of the budget. We've done a lot of consultation, done a lot of value engineering. We've really fine-tuned the building right down to a couple of areas, which we've still got opportunity to work on, and in particular that's one of the kitchen spaces and sort of how we manage waste. But other than that, I'm very pleased with the input we've had from the PCG, and I think we're definitely in step with the PCG, or Project Consultation Group, as to what we're delivering. So I guess, my recommendations forthwith.
Thank you. Yes, I actually, I think probably the significant points here is that whole point 2 has required a contribution of 268,540 plus GST, which has been committed and claimed by the contractor. Whole point 3 takes us to moving to whole point 3 commits to the following additional costs: $90,249 plus GST, which will be committed to the contractor, and project management and superintendent fees for shape management of $27,272 plus GST. So that will take us to a new total of $117,521 plus GST commitment in this phase. I think that's the situation. Yes, and Mr. Rose has also reminded me that whilst I acknowledge the work of the project consultation group, it might be opportune to add a specific recommendation. So the recommendation as revised would be that council or the commissioner, 1, approves the completion of contractual whole point 2 for the VC Mitchell Park project. 2, approves the commencement of contractual whole point 3 for the VC Mitchell Park project. And 3, thanks and acknowledges the project consultation group for their contribution to the project. We'll just get the wording of that right. And thanks for their valuable input. On that basis, I'm prepared to move and carry that recommendation in 3 parts. So thank you and congratulations again. I did note last night, and I'll put on just for the purpose of those in the room and those watching, the current plan. This particular whole point was delayed probably almost 4 weeks at the request of the of Perkins Builders, because that enabled them to go out and get quotes from most of the suppliers and the various parties that will work on this next phase of the project to give us a more finite or a more secure cost basis to move forward. The next phase, though, is to move from whole point 3 to sign the construction contract, which will be the very significant commitment of funds, where we move, that really commits us to going ahead with the project. The timing for that, to keep to the original, I think, commencement of construction in around October of this year, obviously needs to be done prior to the council moving into caretaker mode, which will happen late August, early September. So there's a fair amount of work to be done in the next phase for me to be satisfied that we can actually commit to construction. Otherwise, the project would obviously be delayed. Which if we can't get the information, I wouldn't be proceeding unless I was confident of committing at the future council to that before we move into caretaker mode. So I'll just make that note for the record. But thank you for that. We now move to Item 6.2, Director Corporate and Community. I assume that remains as a nil contribution, but keep working on the budget, Mr Dolcedelli, and thanks to you and Belinda and the team for the work that's being done in that regard. The Chief Executive Officer, 6.3, Mr Rose, nothing. Matters, the meeting is closed to the public. Item 7, we have no matters for which the meeting may or needs to be closed. And we have no items under 7.2, public reading of resolutions that may be made public, so that's nil as well. And so I will advise that the next ordinary council meeting will be held on Wednesday, the 28th of June 2023, commencing at 5 p.m. in the Shire of Donnybrook Balingup Council Chamber, and declare this meeting closed at 10:30 a.m. So thank you to those present and thank you to those watching online. Thank you.